What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. Quick one tonight. Time has escaped me, but there's a few things that I wanted to talk about. The first, the wonderful White Rose Gameroom show is coming up at the end of September. I will be there on the 29th and 30th, as well as the Thursday setup day, along with the multi-bingo. Please come say hello, give the game a shot, let me know what you think, and as always, I'll be providing prizes for those who can make 4 or 5 in a row at any of the machines on Bingo Row. There's a number of collectors who will be there, and we're all bringing machines, and it should be a fantastic time. I'm looking forward to it. I look forward to it all year long, and the time is almost upon us. Last Friday, I had a little playtesting party with a few local guys. It was a horribly rainy night, and only a couple of the invitees were able to make it, but had a great time. Only one bug reared its head, and it's a bug that I've resolved since then across dozens of games, and it was a fun time. Everything worked. Had lots of dramatic balls, ones that required a lot of movement in order to pull out of holes or nudge into the appropriate holes or guide back down to the ball return down at the bottom of the playfield. One of the guys that came was Taylor Reese from This Flippin' Podcast, and he had seen the multi-bingo last year, but it's evolved quite a bit since its last appearance at York, and it was pleasing to get that outside feedback. And then my chief bingo playtester, Joe, came over, and he put it through its paces as well. He also hadn't seen it since a lot of the cosmetic improvements had been made, so it was gratifying to hear their feedback and, kind of bring them up to speed on the project as a whole. So I mentioned the bug. I've actually been on a bug-fixing tear. There were several bugs which I had logged in the issue tracker in GitHub, and there are only 3 open as of today, one of which was a lifter bug. The problem was that occasionally ball number 6 would lift in a game that should only have lifted 5. I did finally narrow that down. The problem was related to the is active method and is inactive. And the issue that I had is that they act exactly the opposite of the way that you'd expect for a normally closed switch. So a normally closed switch, when it's active, is when a ball actuates it, so it opens it up. I had assumed precisely the opposite. So for a normally open switch, it's active when it's closed. A normally closed switch would also be active when it's closed, but that's not right, and I understand the logic there. They do provide 2 alternate methods, is open and is closed, and so I converted my code to use those, and I was able to remove a delay method because of that. I've only updated Frolics so far, which was the game where it was most likely to appear of the games that were play tested on Friday. So it completely cured that one, and I'll need to backport it. The lifter code is pretty low-level stuff in each game, and unfortunately it needs to be specific to almost every game because the way that the game determines if an extra ball should lift or not is actually dependent on various units that have different numbers of steps and so forth per game. So I'm thinking about making a generic 5-ball lifter and then just adding the extra ball logic within the game. But I may not do that. I'm not sure yet. So I'm going to go ahead and backport that to 137 more games. Then everything should be good there. One of the other bugs that I fixed that was notable was Big Wheel. I had implemented the coin flash animations, which was, fun and gratifying. I'd mentioned how great it was to actually have the games flash like they're supposed to. The only problem with Big Wheel was I implemented it, looked at a YouTube video because I've never seen one in person, and then started up my game and dropped a coin, and it flashed exactly backwards from the way that it should. And I wasn't able to figure this out. I had done things like change the direction of spin and all kinds of interesting things in order to try to correct it. But actually, in reviewing it today, what I found out is that the technical writer who had written the documentation for that particular unit had actually drawn it from the wiring side instead of from the wiper side. Almost every unit in the manuals for all of the Bally Bingos are drawn from the wiper side instead of the wiring side. So that was unusual, and I made an assumption which was incorrect, despite there being about 5 notes on that page which said, hey, this is from the wiring side. But live and learn. It's definitely something I'll be on the lookout for as I implement Coin Flash in the rest of the games, because it'll be quite easy to make that mistake in the future. And because the Coin Flash animations are such a time-intensive process, I have to not only map the wire colors, but also pull out the specific measurements for the illuminated image and the non-illuminated backlash image portion that I'm going to re-render. Because that's so time-consuming, I'm going to want to get it right the first time if I can. So I'll be on the lookout for that in future games. I do not recall any other game that is like that at all. So that's just kind of interesting. Other than that, let's see. I've been working on some of the physical aspects of the game. I wired in some additional switches from the drawer. I received a new switchboard, and I've begun the wiring process for that. This will be the 6th switch processing board. Each switch processor supports up to 16 physical switches, so that gives you kind of an idea of how many switches are in this game. The answer is 96. That's quite a lot. Of course, that's 96 total. I'm actually only using about 83 at the moment. But I have some room to grow, and I certainly have additional playfields to wire in, so that should be okay. I had done some concatenating of some of the switches to reduce the switch count, but now I have room to grow, so I'll expand that again probably. That got here very quick, thanks to pinballcontrollers.com and Jerry at Multimorphic, so thank you, and thanks to the custom pinball folks who walked me through the is active and is inactive issues that I was mulling about in my head this morning. You may notice I'm a little quiet. Everyone's in bed or getting ready for bed right now, and it is rather late, and I remembered at the last minute that I needed to record a podcast. So here is what I've got. Remember, this is the year of Flipperless. Today's example is January of 1947's Williams Amber. Amber is a flipperless machine, and it's got an interesting layout. There are 10 different passive bumpers, each of which awards a number towards the sequence, which is displayed on the back glass. There are 2 additional passive bumpers marked 11 and 12. These are additional numbers, which are not part of the main sequence. And these bumpers are marked with caps that are special when lit, or 5,000 points. Now, what's interesting about this playfield layout is that there are also rollovers in the center of the playfield. And on the left and right, you get 5,000 points apiece each time you roll over them. And it will also light those bumpers numbered 11 and 12. As I mentioned, they're not part of the sequence, so when they're lit, you get a free game if you hit them. Now, as this is a flipperless game, and because of the layout, there's a rubber band which is stretched across up above two posts, you're going to have to roll over to it or bounce off of the rubber, which is near the out area. But in between the two rubbers, which are stretched down near the bottom of the game, there are two gobble holes, one of which scores 5,000 points, except when it's lit, in which case it scores 10,000, and the other, which is super special, which awards a certain number of games. And if I read this correctly, when the top hole is lit, then the bottom hole becomes extra special. In order to light it, you have to knock out the entire sequence, 1 through 10. This looks like quite a feat. That's the first thing I'll say. And the second thing is, it looks like it's very lucrative to hit that hole. Now, I'm sure it's operator configurable, and unfortunately there's no pictures of the inside of the machine or any other paperwork that's uploaded to IPDB, but I would imagine, as would be typical for games of this time, that you could win some multiple of 2 up to 8 or 10 games, depending on if it's super or extra special. So something like 4 games, 8 games, 10 games, somewhere in that range. Looks super challenging and actually like a lot of fun. The layout of the rubbers is such that you can sneak behind some of the bumpers and then hit them from underneath. I think that is really clever and would be some good eye candy while you're playing. The layout of the bumpers up top, you have a cluster of 5 bumpers, which are actually, I say cluster, but they're spread out along the machine. In the top area, you have 1, 2, and 3, and in between those bumpers, there is a singular post. This post you can bank a ball off of and up into a gobble hole. The gobble hole is worth 5,000 points unless it's lit, in which case it scores 10,000. Now, it's unclear how to light that, as it's unclear how to light the top gobble hole of the bottom 2. So I guess the middle gobble hole. Bumpers 4 and 5 flank either side of the playfield, and again, the rubber layout is such that you can bank a ball off of the rubbers underneath and hit the bumpers up above, the 4 and 5. I think it's very cool. The artwork is fancy scroll work and concentric circles and beautiful ribbons, which are kind of draped around the gobble holes. The gobble holes themselves are made up of these large plastic inserts, which will illuminate when you complete the sequence or otherwise light the double value. One other interesting note, the machine that's pictured on IPDB has a rebound, which is very interesting. It is much larger than those that I've seen from other machines of the era. Not sure if this is a Williams thing. I've never worked on a Williams that was this old, but it is pretty cool looking and unique. With the layout of the bumpers, you as a player really need every bit of help that you can get. So I would be interested to see, because that looks an awful lot bouncier than most of the era's rebound rubbers. I'd be interested to see how it played. One other thing of note, this game has a beautiful screen shooter lane. It looks very much like the Exhibit mystery that I own, in that it's got these blue lines which project out from the shooter lane and actually get larger as you go up until they culminate in a circle near the top of the shooter lane. I think that's very beautiful and eye-catching, and it's interesting to me that they stopped doing that kind of flourish at some point, probably because there were so many other mechanical gimmicks in the game that you didn't need quite the artwork in the shooter lane anymore. But as I say, beautiful game. Would love to play one of these one day. And the back glass has a lady in a gown, and she's standing in front of a wall, which happens to have, you guessed it, a curtain, a beautiful curtain. The back glass has a gorgeous array of colors, and the sequence is made up of flowers. They're very large and, again, multicolored, beautiful arrangement. Williams is up at the top. There's beautiful scroll work, and the point values are arrayed below the little vignette with Amber herself there in the center. Up at the top center, there is a circle that illuminates when you tilt. And I think that's pretty cool. It's just a red circle and very tall letters. All right, well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call us on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to me on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast. Or you can listen to me on my website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.